Hi, welcome to the show. So, this is the Handmade podcast, and we're just going to be talking about some comments by an economist called Jeffery Sachs. And who is Jeffery Sachs, by the way? I didn't know. So, I checked out his Wikipedia page, and yeah, he's an economist. And a public policy analyst, and a professor of Columbia University. And yeah, pause to read. So there's all this. So he's effectively an intellectual who's worked within the sort of advising the political elite. Yeah. So the reason why he became a topic of interest was because Trump had mentioned him. Trump shares an inflammatory video with crude reference to Netanyahu. So, yeah, this is what he shared. This is around when he was president-elect. This was late last year, early this year, I believe.
Netanyahu had from 1995 onward the theory that the only way we're going to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah is by toppling the governments that support them. That's Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And the guy's nothing if not obsessive. And he's still trying to get us to fight Iran this day, this week. He's a deep, dark son of a bitch, sorry to tell you, because he's gotten us into endless wars, and because of the power of all of this in the U.S. politics, he's gotten his way. But that war was totally phony. So what is this democracy versus dictatorship? Come on. These are not even sensible terms.
Okay, so that's the clip that Trump shared. And it was, I suppose people perceived it as a dig at Netanyahu in this Trumpian fashion. So, yeah, here's what he says. I came across this video, and yeah, he's just talking about, surprise, surprise, Netanyahu, and what the actual overall greater plan is going on. And also, I notice we're not hearing anything from Iran in the Western media, or the axis of resistance, the Houthis, Hezbollah. So they've all gone radio silent. So I don't know what they're making of all of this happening. But yeah, when you don't hear anything from it, it always raises sort of suspicions when you hear nothing. But yeah, let's see what Jeffery Sachs has to say.
Been the most destructive U.S. president we ever had, because he's told every president what to do. Every president has completely supported Netanyahu's vision of remaking the Middle East until today. And by the way, with Israel's illegal grab and effective invasion of territory, I mean, not effective, invasion of Syria in the last few days, the U.S. statesman said, well, yes, we regard this as an understandable provisional action of the United States, of Israel, and the United States supports this. Of course, the United States supports this. The United States supports whatever Israel does, however much chaos is created out of all of this.
That's an important point. The US supports it all and tacitly approves it. I mean, you saw with Biden and now Trump, he just did the ceasefire just to look good for his inauguration. And yeah, it's back to business as usual, full steam ahead in genociding the Palestinian people.
What we're seeing in the last days is part of a plan that goes back more than 20 years. It sounds zany, but this is craziness that we're dealing with. This is a plan for taking out 7 regimes. So they thought legally, literally, I mean, you do something completely lawless, initiating war, but you look for a legal fig leaf. And that was why Iraq first. But the idea was that Syria would be overthrown immediately afterwards. And then immediately after that would be the rest of the list. And what has been explained to me by military individuals that were in the midst of this is that the U.S. military got tied down in Iraq in an unexpected way with the insurgency. So they didn't move straight to take out Assad.
That's interesting. How did they not perceive that there was going to be... They just thought, oh, we'll just roll over the insurgency, or they didn't think it was going to happen?
Which was supposed to happen in 2003. So this is quite interesting. But why do this? And Netanyahu spelled this out in his book in 1996, Fighting Terrorism, and then in a rather remarkable speech that he gave in the United States on September 20th, 2001, just after 9/11. He said, you don't fight terrorists by fighting the terrorists. You fight terrorists by fighting the states that support them. And Netanyahu's idea, backed by the crazy, violent, repulsive neocons, I hope I'm being clear, in the U.S. government, said, yes, we will remake the Middle East by war, one after another. So Hamas and Hezbollah are backed by Saddam Hussein. They're backed by Assad. They're backed by Iran. In fact, it wasn't just the Iranian axis of resistance back then. It was all of these states around Israel that were supporting the Palestinian cause. And if you think about it, of course, Iraq was 2003.
Now, you must understand that he's speaking from an American perspective, outsider looking in. These countries, yeah, they kind of, they're set up by the West. So the governments totally 100% support Israel, but their populations don't. Their populations support Palestine.
The war on Assad started in 2011. Not everyone is aware of Operation Timber Sycamore, but this is the CIA operation to overthrow Assad under Obama. And everyone should understand, doesn't matter, Democrats, Republicans, nice people, not nice people. America has one foreign policy of continuity, and it has nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans. So Assad was 2011, the war started, but they didn't succeed in overthrowing Assad because he had backing from Russia, which started especially in 2015. Hezbollah was the backstop of the Syrian regime. And the idea was, of course, by attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon and drawing Hezbollah forces into Lebanon and blocking the resupply of Hezbollah through the active bombing of Syria in recent weeks and through this military action, this was the way to bring down the regime. It happened, I'm sure, much faster than anybody anticipated. Now Israel is invading Syria from the southwest into the northeast. Where it stops, who knows? There are crazy people in Israel who say go on to Damascus. Then if you go...
That's an interesting point. So, yeah, they do want to take over Syria, take over Damascus. Yeah, they are not going to stop. And I think the ultimate plan is to invade Iran.
Down the rest of the list. Somalia, well, that was attacked by a U.S. proxy by Ethiopia in 2006. Sudan, the United States broke Sudan into pieces, it literally dividing it into Sudan and South Sudan, with the clever ploy of the United States to put all the oil reserves in South Sudan, not in North Sudan, which is now bankrupt and in starvation and in civil war. Libya in 2011. Lebanon, of course, invaded repeatedly by Israel, including just recently. So actually, this vision has been carried out. And this is what Netanyahu was crowing about a couple of days. We have remade the Middle East. We've done it step by step. So we should have no doubt that this is part of a long-term strategy. Of course, there are cameo appearances by Erdogan. He wants Turkish influence in Syria. This definitely plays a role. I don't mean to minimize that. But this is part of a long-standing plan. And the immediate collapse, which none of us saw coming, I don't know anyone that saw this except, I suppose, inside the Israeli intelligence community and no doubt CIA and a few others, in the interpretation of the people running Israel and the United States. If the other side says negotiate, that means they are weak, and you should start by assassinating literally the negotiators, because it's very important to kill people who would negotiate in the Netanyahu neocon vision.
And that's exactly what happened. We saw Israel assassinating the head negotiator of Hamas and all their leadership and political wing. They weren't taking out, these people were that lead negotiator. He wasn't, part of the military wing. He was, effectively the Hamas's version of a diplomat. He was the guy handling the peace negotiations.
And then you go to war against them. They're weak. This is the madness that we're in right now. What will come out of this? Nothing good. Absolutely nothing good. If you look at the killing fields and the chaos that Israel and the United States have sown throughout the Middle East since the Iraq War, it's stunning that there has not been one moment of political solution, not one moment of peace, not one resolution of one crisis. So to my mind, this whole approach is madness. And if you were to have read Netanyahu or known Netanyahu back 30 years, it was madness then, and it's madness today. The idea that the jihadist groups that the United States has backed, and of course everybody does understand, I'm sure, listening in, that Al-Qaeda is a U.S. creation, was and always has.
That's exactly right. And, it's pretty well non-issue and not controversial to say that Al Qaeda was an American creation. I mean, it's obvious that it was, and all of the ISIS, which is a later evolution of Al Qaeda. These guys, they've all got CIA handlers, and like I sound crazy, but this guy, he would have he has contacts within the U.S. government and the upper branches, no doubt, and he's saying it.
Has been and continues to be. So all these, quote, terrorist groups, yes, they're on CIA backing from the start. It's not even, of course, not even a secret. It's thoroughly documented in shelffuls of books. You don't get peace out of this. You don't get a safe border because we've brought down the evil Assad regime. You get ongoing war and chaos, and that's already, but that's not going to sit well. That's not a stable environment. Netanyahu already said, this is ours. We're going to claim this. We're never giving this up. This is Israel's whole approach. Whatever we take is ours, and it's up to us.
See, and that's what I was saying. That's their mentality. That's a fascist mentality. These guys are fascists. Israel and America, their administrations now are totally fascist. People need to stop pretending and actually call it out. They're fascists now. And this is what fascists do. They don't negotiate. They don't play nice. They have the power, and they're going to exercise it and wield it as much as they can. And they see any attempt at peace as weakness.
To decide what we take more. This is the greater Israel approach. It's completely destabilizing. It's madness. So, of course, there could be war between Turkish-backed forces and the United States. There could be easily war between Turkish-backed forces and Israel. That would bring a wider war. There could be a new war with Iran. We don't have clarity on this. The Israel lobby in the United States.
There's going to be a war with Iran. I think that's the whole point of this, because Iran is we're all taught to hate it because it doesn't fall into line with the US, and it stands opposed to the US empire's little settler colony, Israel. That's what's going on here. So of course, Iran is going to be the ultimate goal.
Has been so dominant and so reckless, and Netanyahu is absolutely so profoundly irresponsible, and his government is perhaps even worse than Netanyahu, though that's a little hard to say. But this is a completely extremist government that is
nice way of saying Nazi.
Absolutely aiming for a wider war. Everything is possible right now in the Middle East. Israel wants wider war. It wants to pull Trump into a wider war. There will be people in his government that want a wider war. There will be people that oppose it. And Netanyahu definitely is angling for a wider war. So, unfortunately, in our world, the decisions of a few people shape the fates of tens or hundreds of millions of people, or even billions of people. And that's the situation that we're in right now. Nobody gets to.
That's so true. That is the reality. These people get to, directly affect all of our lives, and it's not for, you know, humanitarian reasons or for the greater good or any of that bullshit. It's all for a nation state to gain power and to survive, not only survive but thrive. And they need perpetual war.
Vote on this. This is a decision of a few people, and they do not behave well very often. Obvious. We are one vote away from a solution that would bring peace to the Middle East. And that one vote is the veto that the United States imposed on having a state of Palestine as a sovereign state alongside Israel on the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, according to international law. The United States has vetoed this on behalf of Israel. This, to my mind, is the root of the conflicts throughout the region. The Netanyahu doctrine is there will never be a Palestinian state. And because of that, there will be resistance to Israel. And because of that, Israel must be at war with every government in the region that supports the Palestinian cause.
There it
And
is.
this goes back 30 years. And Israel has provoked wars all over the region to try to replace regimes that are behind Palestine and behind Hamas and Hezbollah, who fight for Palestine. And so rather than having peace, we have war. And the United States has gone to war on Israel's behalf repeatedly, to the great detriment of the world, to the great detriment of the United States, and to the great detriment, in my view, of Israel's long-term security as well. This is the basic choice. Do we have peace or do we have expanding war? And the hold of the Israel lobby on American politics has been so strong that the choice has been expanding war in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Sudan, in Somalia, in Libya, and if Netanyahu gets his way, in Iran. We have a remarkable statement by General Wesley Clark that is very well known, that after the 9/11 attack, Wesley Clark visited the Pentagon and he was shown a piece of paper that said 7 countries would be overthrown in 5 years. And the list was Iraq, Syria, Iran, Lebanon, Somalia, Sudan, and Libya. And Clark expressed befuddlement.
And there it is. That's the plan. That's the plan. So all of this rhetoric and the media priming you for with their narrative. Just think of remember what this guy, Jeffery Sachs has said. This is the plan. They're going to invade all these countries and topple all these countries and make them all vassal states of the US in a complete way, and make them all vassal states, I should say, of Israel and therefore the United States. And then, Israel starts to return on its investment to the US.
And bewilderment, what does this have to do with 9/11? And the answer was, we're making the Middle East over again. This was the clean break strategy from 1996, now to be implemented. And in September 2001, though Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, the decision was made immediately that to implement this remake of the Middle East, the first invasion would be of Iraq. This by itself is interesting, just as a footnote. The reason that they chose Iraq first was not because of Saddam or weapons of mass destruction, which they knew did not exist, but rather there was a legal fiction that they could use, a 1998 Iraq Liberation Act, which had been passed by Congress and signed by President Clinton, that made it the law of the land that Saddam Hussein should be removed from power. I think that there are strong reasons that go beyond Syria for the rapprochement of Iran and Saudi Arabia, not the least of which is that each of these two countries actually wants normalcy and economic development. They actually do not want ongoing war. I think Israel and the United States are the main provocateurs in the region. And I think the failure of the diplomacy to establish peace through a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel is strangely enough, even though that's just one corner of the Middle East, it's the remaining dominant factor for the continued war. And the reason is that Israel remains on a rampage throughout the region, in Lebanon, in Syria, in wanting war with Iran. The immediate determination, it seems, to annex the West Bank. In all of this, Israel.
And right now, the West Bank is being completely attacked. The IDF is totally hammering the West Bank now. A pregnant mother was just recently killed there. I think yesterday or the day before. And notice how there's no reporting of that. You will not find any reporting that isn't pro-Israel. And the way they distort things is also by omitting things. And that's one of the things. They're not reporting on what's happening in the West Bank because it's not a good narrative for them. It's not good optics.
Is a great destabilizer. And as long as the United States steadfastly backs that destabilization, there cannot be peace in the region. But there is a common interest of Iran and Saudi Arabia in not having this spill into a generalized regional war. And this is the direction it will head if there is a breakdown in that new rapprochement, or if the United States continues to back Israel in its, I think, utterly reckless and destructive vision of the greater Israel, so-called. I think Syria will continue to be a killing field. It will continue to be a battleground. I don't believe myself that there's likely to be any kind of unified Syria in the coming years. Israel has invaded in the south. The United States backs Kurds in the northeast. Turkey has supported the jihadists, not only in the most recent action to take Damascus, but to enter into battle with the Kurdish forces. Iran has strong interests and is not going away. The idea that this is somehow in any way likely to be settled strikes me as very, very over-optimistic. All of the experience of Western regime change, and this is another Western regime change. Maybe the coup de grace was brought by Turkey, though I'm not even convinced of that entirely, because it was Israel and the United States that played a very large role in the events of bringing down Assad over the past 13 years. But all of the experiences that in events like this, things don't end with the fall of a regime. This typically is the beginning of new civil war. And I think that this is likely in the Syrian context. Now, let me state at the outset, I think Netanyahu is a madman. I think what Israel has done is destructive.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's Jeffery Sachs talking about Israel's greater plan. And yeah, what's going to happen? I'll link the whole clip in the description. This is the channel, The Face of War. And yeah, that'll be it for me. And if you made this far, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.